So here's our goal. We're going to dramatically speed up development by using the new GPT-1o preview, the highly intelligent, highly capable reasoning model, to generate a step-by-step development plan for us, which we will then feed into Cursor in piecemeal to develop an application. High level for our steps, we're using as many tools as possible so that AI can do most of the work for us. So GPT-4o is going to help us set up the development environment. We don't need high reasoning capabilities like o1 to make that happen. GPT-4o is going to do just fine. And then, as I already mentioned, o1-preview is going to create that development plan for us. And Cursor will be the tool we're using the entire time as our code editor, because Cursor is an LLM native code editor that has this really cool feature called a composer that lets you prompt it with natural language and it will actually attempt to write all the code for you. And the quality really depends on your prompting. And so that's where this development plan from o1-preview comes into play, because that's going to generate some really high quality prompts that guides Cursor and lets it do its job very effectively. In terms of what we're building today, we're going to build a fun little app called Debate Generator. Okay, let's see what Carl Sagan and Elon Musk would say when they debate the likelihood of intelligent life beyond planet Earth. So it's sending, like I said, over to OpenAI. Here's Carl Sagan's first argument, followed by Elon Musk's rebuttal, Carl Sagan again, and then Elon Musk. And there's also this download button here at the bottom where you can download the debate in JSON or Markdown. Pretty cool, fun little app. Okay, so let's get our development environment set up. I'm here in ChatGPT. I've got 4o selected and my prompt here at the bottom. I'll read this out to you. For the development environment prompt, I'm taking a pretty casual approach. You'll see that my prompt for generating the development plan will be much more detailed than this, but setting up a dev environment is straightforward enough, and there's so many tutorials online. I think the LLM is going to be just fine. So I'm saying I'm building a new app. I want to use Express, React, MUI, cores, Axios for some of my core libraries. I also want an icon library if Material doesn't already have one. I can't remember. How should I set up my local environment, and what other utilities should I consider installing as part of my setup? So one of the things I'm doing here, and this will be a pattern that you'll see in the next prompt too, I am guiding GPT a bit, right? I'm saying I want to use these tools, Express, React, etc. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to narrow the possibility space for the large language model to explore. A little bit of guidance goes a long ways with these tools. If I were to come in here and just say, I want to build a new app, how should I set up my dev environment? It could come up with many different approaches. It'll probably work, but it might not be in the tech stack that I'm familiar and comfortable in. And also, maybe it's in Python. I don't really develop in Python very much, but just a little bit of guidance helps narrow the possibility space. Next thing I'm going to do is just read through this closely and just kind of make sure that I understand generally what's happening. I don't recommend blindly copying and pasting code or commands that LLMs generate. You want to at least have an understanding of what it wants you to accomplish and why it's asking you to do something. So I'm just going to quickly run through these. We're going to run through it together so we can kind of just generally understand. So it wants me to make a new directory and then cd into that, and then initialize my node project. That makes sense. Set up my backend with Express. I need to install Express and then add this code to my server.js file. I'll do with server instead of app.js for the server side. And that makes sense. I am just going to copy and paste this instead of using Cursor's composer feature. We'll use that later in the video, but for this stuff, it's a little bit simpler. So just going to copy that. I'm adding some scripts to my package.json. That makes sense. And then it wants me to set up the front end. So using npx create React app client, cd into that client, install some stuff like Material. Oh, it does have an icon library. Okay, cool. Great. And then I'm going to set up the React and Express integration. It wants me to install concurrently in NodeMon. So this is a good example of like, I did this a week ago and I wasn't familiar with concurrently. So when I see stuff I don't know about, I just look it up. So what's NodeMon, what's concurrently? You just want to make sure you kind of understand what you're installing. Add some more scripts to packon.json. By the way, this is another really good way to learn development. If you see stuff you don't understand, just go look it up and learn it. You're going to be learning within a well-defined context. And then it wants me to run both the client and the server. At this point, things should be working. And here's some extra utilities. And then finally setting up a proxy. Okay. So I have Cursor open here on the right, and this is where we're going to do all of our work. I don't have a workspace or anything open right now. I'm going to hit Command J to open up the terminal, and I'm going to just stay in Cursor and do all of my setup within Cursor. Okay, so I'm at the point now where I need to add this code to the server.js file. But I haven't actually opened my workspace in Cursor yet, and I'm going to show you how to do that really quick. There's a command line tool that you can install with Cursor, and the command is cursor --add dot from the folder that you want to add, and that should add the code to the workspace. So I hit this toggle on the top left, or top right, to open up the sidebar. But now I can actually see the files that I have here. So I need to add my server file and server.js and then add this code, and I'll keep running through it. Okay, I think I'm at a point now where I can test to see if my development environment is set up properly. Okay, so to start the development environment, I added some scripts to my package.json file, in particular this npm run dev script that concurrently runs the server and the client. And what I like to do down in my terminal, I like to keep this terminal as it is and just click the plus button to add a new one. And then I will go ahead and run that script from here. npm run dev, and let's see what happens. Okay, nice. This is what I expected. We were looking at the at a different repository a second ago that flashed on the screen, but this is actually what's running now. That's what this code is. So the front end appears to be working. Let's see, I believe there was a console.log. So on the server side, there's a console.log that says server is running on, and it tells us which port. So here it is. So here's the console.log, server is running on 5001. And if I come over here, let's see, let me refresh this. Hello world, exclamation mark, excellent. And I should be able, because I have NodeMon installed, if I add foo to this and then refresh, that should show up here. So it looks like the server is working. That's excellent. So if we come back to our game plan here, we successfully set up the dev environment using GPT-4o. The next thing we're going to do is create that development plan using GPTo1-preview. I think this is the most powerful piece that we're going to be talking about today. So this is the one I think you might consider baking into your workflow if you don't do this already. First thing we're going to do before we create that development plan is we're going to have 4o generate a file structure for us. And there's a really kind of convenient way of doing that. You can actually just take a screenshot of your file structure in Cursor, like I just did, and ask 4o to generate that for you. Let me move this up a little bit. So please generate a file structure based on this image. Paste that in, and it'll actually do a really good job. And we need that because we want GPTo1-preview to have full context of what our application looks like and what files are going to be available to it that it needs to edit. And so we'll see in a minute how this comes in handy, but look at that. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so here's the prompt I'm going to use to generate the development plan. I'll go over this at a high level, and if you want me to put it in the description or something, let me know. But just let it know kind of what you're up to. I want you to create a development plan. I'm using Cursor, the AI-powered IDE, and I will use the dev plan to prompt Cursor to create an app for me. I'm just letting O1-preview know kind of generally what I'm up to and what I want it to accomplish for me. I'm telling it my tech stack, again, just kind of trying to narrow the realm of possibility for O1-preview and give it some guidance in terms of how to be successful. I'm telling it what setup I've already done so it can kind of just skip those steps, right? I'm telling it a little bit about my app, the name and the purpose of the app. I'm describing the UX right here. And I could be more detailed than this, but this is pretty good. I'm basically saying, hey, there's these 4 inputs. When a user clicks the generate debate button, it starts to incrementally spit out debate arguments. And then I'm talking about some of kind of more of the technical side, how the debate gets generated. And so what I'm describing here is that I want it to send the metadata that the user submits over to OpenAI to generate that first debate argument, and then take the entirety of the debate context, send that back to OpenAI to generate the next argument, and so on and so on. And so I'm kind of at a high level describing the architecture of the application. This is a really critical paragraph, and I'm just going to read it out loud. For the project plan, I want you to think like a product team, dev lead, designer, product manager. Slice the work into small, focused scopes that can be reliably achieved. Don't make them so small that there are more tasks than necessary. You want to balance the number of tasks you generate with the quality and reliability of achieving those tasks. So the idea behind this paragraph is if, for example, let me back up a little bit. Weeks ago, I was playing around with Cursor, and I would just tell Cursor to just generate an app for me, give it a high level description, kind of like this up here, right? That's not going to work. What works a lot better is if you use Cursor, just kind of like how a normal development team works. What do? You come up with a scope of work. You break that work into tickets. Each ticket has a goal, and it's an kind of atomic, isolated scope of work that you can easily determine whether or not you are successful with that ticket. So if we can use O1-preview to generate a development plan that a normal development team would use, and then step by step send those tickets or scopes of work into Cursor like you would a normal developer, we're going to be a lot more successful. And that's what this paragraph is trying to accomplish, as well as this paragraph. So what I'm telling it is I'm giving it some guidance on the output. For the project plan, be sure to include these 3 things in each scope of work. I want a user story describing the user's goals. I want a design spec describing the UX and app behavior. And I want a technical spec describing in natural language what should be coded and in which files. What we're going to see is that O1-preview is going to give a lot of guidance to Cursor. It's actually going to tell it which files to be editing, which greatly increases the likelihood of Cursor being successful. If you're not telling Cursor which files to edit, it oftentimes knows which ones to edit, but oftentimes doesn't. And I don't need O1-preview to write out the code because Cursor can do that, but I want it to describe in natural language what should be coded, kind of like you would in a development ticket, right? And here's that directory path that we took a screenshot of earlier, right? So I'm going to copy all this and pop it into O1, and we're going to watch it generate a dev plan for us. Okay, I've got my full prompt loaded up for O1-preview, and it is going to think for a little while. It's really interesting to watch it do its job. So it's defining the scope, managing argument dynamics, piecing together project scope, synthesizing elements, laying the foundation, integrating user stories, and now it just did a bunch of things I couldn't even see really quick. Cool, so it's a grand total of 31 seconds. So in 31 seconds, we generated this entire development plan. And we're gonna look at this in a little bit more detail, but I just wanna scan it really quick. It's broken into scopes of work. This looks good. Has user stories, design specs, technical spec. It's looking good. Let's get to work. Small note, I find it's a little bit easier to work with the markdown of the output. So I just copied this and I went ahead and pasted the output over here so we can work with the markdown. It's a little bit easier to get that into Cursor. Okay, we've got our development plan loaded up here. Let's start going through each scope at a time and passing that over to the Composer feature in Cursor. And again, you just want to read through this, generally understand what's going to happen with each one. This first scope is creating the input form for the debate parameters. There's a user story, there's a design spec, and then importantly, there's a text spec as well that lists which files are to be changed and generally what's supposed to happen. So we're just going to take that whole prompt and pop it into Cursor over here. Open up the Composer and paste the prompt in, and it's getting to work right away. So it starts off by editing the app.js file. Now it's adding some CSS, and it's also updating. Oh, it didn't actually update server.js. It's recommending doing that if we want to. Notice how it recommends installing material. We've already done that, but you do get these helpful hints from Cursor as well. So before accepting the code changes, I like to just scan it really quick to make sure that I generally understand what's going on. We're adding React. Here's the submission handling. There's a console log, so we might be able to see that console log here when we test it in a minute. And this is adding the form components themselves, and the CSS file is just a little bit of CSS. Great, let's go ahead and accept that and pop over to our Chrome so we can, boom. We've already got a bit of a UI shaping up here. Pretty exciting. So let me send over a test, hi, and we see that show up in the console here. Apologies if that's really small. There we go. So it's showing up in the console. Hi. Okay, excellent. Let's move on to the next scope. So scope 2 is implement form submission and data handling. Again, we're just going to pop that over into Cursor Composer, send it on through, and I'm just scanning to see what sort of functionality we're building. It wants us to edit the app.js. Oh, okay, we're also creating an endpoint on the server.js file. So let's look forward to that. So first it edits the app.js file. We're adding an onSubmit handler. And then in server.js, we're adding an express route. Notice it's saying to install npm or Axios, sorry. And yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm just checking out the app.js file changes here. And this is where Axios is being imported. So I think we have an answer to our question now. We need to install Axios in the client. So I will take care of that before accepting these code changes. It's doing some loading state, handle submission, more loading state handling. And on the server side, we're pulling in cores, and we have a new endpoint here, API generate debate. And there is a console log, received debate parameter, debate generated successfully. Okay, so let me go ahead and install Axios in the client, cd into client, npm install Axios. Okay, it's in there now. I'm gonna go ahead and accept the changes. And again, we'll pop back over to our dev environment and just take a look at how things are shaping up. Did we remove the hello world from the server? Let me see. It looks like we did actually. Okay. Yeah, the hello world was removed from the server. That's fine. I didn't notice that. So I'm going to send another test over. Hello. Okay, we've got an error. So I'm just going to take the entirety of this error and I'm going to paste it for now into the Cursor chat, which will hopefully help me debug this error. Copy that, head back over to Cursor, and you open chat up here on the right, and I'm gonna move the file context. I'm getting this error, help me debug. Okay, so it has some helpful suggestions here. It's saying check the backend server to make sure you're on the right port. We're supposed to be running on port 5001 just for my local config. That looks to be incorrect, so that could be the issue. Yeah, let me change this, but this might have gotten changed without me noticing. So let me go ahead and update that. And the server looks like it crashed. Cannot find module cores. Oh, I thought we installed cores, but maybe we didn't. Let me go ahead and install cores. Okay, it looks like the server's running now. It's running on port 5000. I'm sorry, 5001. And oh yeah, we got rid of the hello world. So let me send this back over the line and see if we can get a different result. Ta-da! Let me move my face so you can see a little bit better. Debate generated successfully. And here's the message. Great. So let's continue on. There was a little bit of a port issue. Got to keep an eye on those details. Let's move on to the next scope. Okay, scope 3 is about setting up OpenAI's API integration on the back end. So this will be an exciting step. Let's copy that over and again paste it into Cursor's composer. I'm going to get rid of the chat window here to get us some more space. Righty, pasting that into Composer. So it's telling us to go ahead and install OpenAI and .env. Let's check to see if we have those. So I'll do an npm list OpenAI, and it's empty. Okay. .env I'm almost certain we installed, but my memory fails me. Let's just double check. npm list .env, and it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and install OpenAI's package. Okay, that's installed. Next, it wants me to create a .env file. So that's one thing to note, is that Cursor doesn't actually, from what I've experienced, create new files for you. And so you do have to do that work yourself. It's not challenging, but you do have to make sure that you're doing that. So I'm going to do touch.env to create that environment file. And it wants me to put the OpenAI API key in there. I'll take care of that here in a minute after we look at the diffs in the files. We're pulling in OpenAI, so we need to make sure that we already got that installed. It's setting up an OpenAI configuration. It's adjusting the endpoint here for us. And here's where it's actually calling out to OpenAI. Looks like the model is defined as text DaVinci 003. That's fine. We can always change that later. And it has some prompt handling, some prompt engineering baked in for us. That's pretty cool. Okay, looks reasonable. And in app.js, we are adding some, and in app.js, we have some minor changes here. Let's go ahead and accept this. And then I'm going to handle the .env setup real quick. Oh, this is interesting. It actually, it's kind of funny. It generated some code that has an error in it. I just noticed. So JSS expressions must have one parent element. I'm going to try this quick fix, wrap in JSS fragment. That's fine. We'll just take that for now. Just get that fixed. So, oh, funny. I misspelled this file. So let me go ahead and recreate this. I'm going to delete this file. Move to trash. Yeah. Instead of .evn, I need a .env file. Great. So in the .env file is where I want to put this OpenAI key. That was pretty funny. It tried to autocomplete my key. Of course, it truncated it, so it didn't flash on the screen there. I'm not going to show it on the screen, but this is where I'm going to pop in my API key real quick. Okay, I've got my key in there. So let's go ahead and try this out. We should be hitting OpenAI's API, and NodeMon app crashed. Yeah, so the server crashed, and it's saying down here, if you can read, that let's see, where's the error? Configuration is not a constructor, and it's pointing to really this OpenAI call. That involves line 5 where configuration is called, and then line 14 where it's called again. I think, I could be wrong, I think what's happening here is it's referring to some old documentation. I know the fix for this, so I'm just going to do it. I need to change these to OpenAI like so, and then change this one to OpenAI And then lastly, change this to OpenAI. And there we go. And this should solve the error. Let's see if that fixes things. Great, server is now running on port 5001. So a bug like this, if you didn't just know the fix offhand, because I've gone through this flow before, I remember it, might take a little bit longer to resolve. And so you want to make sure that whatever code Composer is creating is referring to the latest documentation, especially if you're using third-party APIs like OpenAI or something like that. And so it can be helpful to have their docs up. You could even paste their docs into chat in Cursor. If you don't want to do the reading yourself, you can have Cursor do the reading. So let's go ahead and test this one out. This one should be fun. Okay, this is way too big. All right, so debate topic, test, hello, and hello. This isn't going to generate a very interesting debate, but okay, we got an error. That's okay. Internal server error. Okay, interesting. So this could be kind of a similar error. So we received the debate parameters on the server, and that's happening. Where is that happening? That's happening here on line 21. Received debate parameters, and then there's an error. OpenAI dot create completion is not a function. So we could be referring again to a deprecated function in OpenAI. And so since the context is in the server.js file, I'm going to pass that context over to chat server.js. And I'm going to ask it to help me debug. So right here, it's actually saying, check the documentation, make sure you're using the correct method. If you're using a newer version of the library, it might be different. We should be using the latest. And so it's actually suggesting OpenAI.chat.completions instead of create completion. And so let me try that one out and see if that method is accepted. Okay, server's running. Cool. And let me send this over the line again. And we got an error, but I don't know if it's the same error yet. It is. It is basically the same error. OpenAI.chat.completions is not a function. So next I'm going to check. Let's see. Oh, actually, you know what? That was my fault. I left the .create off. That was my bad. So let me actually take the suggestion that Cursor Chat made properly and try that one out. Okay, sending this over the line, and we got another error, but I think it's a different error. Let me close chat so we can read this a little bit more easily. And yeah, the error looks totally different. We've got our parameters here, so that's cool. Error generating debate not found error 404. The model text DaVinci 003 has been deprecated. I thought that one looked pretty old. And so what I want to do here is I'm just going to open up Composer, and I'm going to say update server.js so that we are calling, let's use 4.0 mini, the 4.0 mini model from OpenAI instead of, what are we calling now? Text.DaVinci 03. So it's checking that out, called GPT-4. I actually want 4.0 mini. So this was actually kind of a poor result in my opinion, but that's okay. It changed my fix back to the old code, which I've already shown is not working properly. And it's also changing this back to the old code, which we just resolved. It did update the model name, but I'm going to reject these. And I'm just going to go to the internet. And I'm just going to do the old-fashioned thing and search for the model names. And here we go. This is the one that I want, GPT-4.0 mini. I just need to change this out. And so for a small thing like this, I'm sorry, Cursor, but you failed me. I just want to change out this little bit of text here to GPT-4.0 mini. Okay, let's save that. and go back to our app, run it again, see if we got an error. Looks like we did. What do we miss in here? Okay, so here's the error. We're missing a required parameter called messages in the call to OpenAI. And let's give Cursor Chat another chance here. So I'm going to add the context of server.js, and I'm going to say, help me revise my call to OpenAI. Make sure I'm using the latest documentation. Here's the error message I'm currently getting when calling out to their endpoint. Paste that in. Okay, so it's saying OpenAI expects a messages parameter instead of a prompt parameter. Nice. So here's my prompt. Let me just take all of this and swap it with this guy right here. Okay, save that, and let's try again. Looks like maybe there was an error again. So another error here. Let me copy this, paste it into chat like we normally do. I'm encountering an error calling OpenAI. So this series of errors I think is a bit instructive because there was a clue earlier on when the code generated appeared to be using some older OpenAI methods. And so I think that was a clue that maybe a lot of this OpenAI integration code might not work. But let's read through this and see what it's saying. So two good ideas I'm seeing in this code over here. One is to add console.log so we can see the response we're getting from OpenAI, so we can better understand the structure of its response. The other thing I'm seeing is when we're defining argument A here, this is actually chat is suggesting to hit response.choices.message.content. And over here, I'm hitting response.data.choices.text, completely different. So I'm just going to try this out before we see what the actual response structure is. I'm just going to give it a shot, and we will try those both out. And if it doesn't work, we will see, what the actual response is. It looks like it did work though. So generating argument A for persona A. Great topic test, argument for hello. Okay, so it's working. Yeah, success. There we have it. Let's move on to the next scope. This scope is titled Implement Iterative Debate Generation Logic. So it's going to be handling the back and forth between our system and OpenAI. And I always do that. I hit Apple K and I should be hitting Apple I to launch Composer. And so it's going to be handling that logic to do the actual kind of iterative generation of the debate. So it's saying update server.js to add the iterative debate generation and set up socket IO. Okay, cool. App.js to set up socket IO, install dependencies. I have not installed socket IO or the socket IO client, so I will have to do both of those. Ensure you're using a proxy on your client's package.json. I know I'm already doing that. So since we have some dependencies, let's go ahead and install those before we move on. Great. And as always, let's scan over the code changes. So we're adding HTTP. We're requiring socket IO. Here, setting up the socket IO server. Nice. Quite a few changes to the OpenAI config stuff, it looks like. Notice right here, it changed my model again to GPT-4. You got to keep an eye on this stuff. I'm just going to accept this for now, and I might go back and change it. But yeah, it's important just to kind of read through the code and see what it actually did. On app.js, we are setting up socket, a bunch of socket stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and accept this and give it a whirl, see how it does. I'm going to refresh. This time I'm going to give it an actual debate topic, like I'm just going to do something short, like meaning of life between Thomas Jefferson and Bill Gates. And I'm going to give it argument count of 2 so we can see the debate actually unfold. Here we go. This is the big test, y'all. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson, followed by an argument from Bill Gates. Cool. I mean, it looks like it's working, right? No errors in the terminal. So great. We are good to continue. Let's go on to the next scope. So scope 5 is display debate in chat style layout. So it looks like this is primarily going to be some UI updates, which will be nice because if you noticed, the UI is a little lacking right now. Not the most attractive UI I've ever seen in my life, at least. All right, so these changes were to app.js. Here's the app.js changes. Nice, we're pulling in some icons. That'll be good. And then I'm assuming a bunch of, here's some more stuff at the bottom. Okay. And then I'm assuming quite a few CSS changes. Okay, so here's the CSS changes it's making. Let's go ahead and accept this. And again, take a look. So here's what the UI looked like prior. Hopefully the refresh yields something pretty interesting. Life, me, you. All right, let's see how it displays this. Okay, yeah, it's looking a lot cleaner. It's looking a lot more like a chat interface. Let's do a longer chat. Oh, interesting. Got an error. Oh, it's just if there's nothing in that input, it throws an error. I want to see what it looks like with a few more chats in there. A couple things I'm noticing is the UI is a little bit off. It's not centered. These should be pulled to the right. And it looks like the content of the arguments is not so good. Something's wrong here, but we'll come back to that and we will figure it out before we're done. Moving on to the last scope we're going to do is scope 6, implement download functionality. This is for your JSON or Markdown downloads. I'm going to go ahead and pop this in. And after this one, we'll take a closer look at the UI as well as the messages that are being sent through in the debate. Okay, so a couple CSS updates. Most of the changes are happening in app.js. Let's take a look at those. All right, so we're tracking whether or not the debate's completed or not, which makes sense because I only want to display that download button when it's completed. Here's download as JSON and download as Markdown and download as file. And then here's the actual buttons for displaying. All right, let's try this one out and see how that goes. We'll send over a dummy debate, and we just want to, all we're looking for here is that download button gets displayed after the second argument. Oh, interesting, because the two persona names are the same. It's considering them to be the same person. Download debate as JSON and Markdown. Let's download it as JSON first. Cool. Okay, I found the JSON file, so looks like it's right. It has the persona and their argument followed by the next persona and their argument. So good enough for now. Okay, this section is where my app is calling out to OpenAI. And what I'm going to do first is add a couple console logs because I need to get a better understanding of what we're actually sending as the prompts and what the response is really looking like. And I think that will give me enough context to be able to prompt Cursor's composer properly. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I think we have the context that we need. What we need to do is we need to have some way of handling in this method here whether or not it's the first argument in the debate. And if so, do not include this copy here, right? So let me draft up a prompt and then I'll read it out to you. I'm doing the inline editor in Cursor. So you just highlight the code of interest and then hit Command K and you can prompt it right here. So I'm saying adjust the function to be able to handle the first argument in the debate. If it's the first argument in the debate, do not include the following in the prompt. And I'm pasting in that code, right? However, subsequent arguments in the debate should include it. So let me enter that and see what it does. Ooh, this is looking good. So let prompt equal this kind of baseline prompt. If previous arguments dot length is greater than 0, then add that to the prompt. That looks pretty natural to me. Let's accept it, save it, and rerun this debate. Ooh, it didn't work. I think I see what's happening here. The argument that's getting passed back from OpenAI, it looks to be a header. This is just a prompt engineering problem here. So I'm just going to add a little bit of context here. Okay, I gotta pause and just highlight this. I don't know how Cursor is doing this. I really don't know. If anyone wants to guess in the comments or help me understand how it's able to basically read my mind here. So I'm focusing on this autocomplete, right? This is basically what I wanted to say. I started typing do not, and then it suggests include any preamble or commentary, just the argument itself. It's moments like this. Yeah, that's what I want. Thank you. It's moments like this where I'm like, wow, these tools have gotten so sophisticated. It's really, really astounding. So, ba-boom. Oh, but that one's not so hot, is it? Also, do not include, let me see if it guessed. Sure, any quotes around the argument or the name of the persona. One more shot. Okay, this is looking way better. We have an argument from Jesus, followed by the devil, followed by Jesus. Okay, last little tweak I'm gonna make, and then I'm gonna let y'all go, is I just want the second persona, persona B, I want their arguments to be pulled to the right. All right, I'm gonna add app.js and app.css. Let me take a look at this. In the debate output in the UI, the arguments for both persona A and persona B are floated to the left. I want the arguments for persona B to be floated to the right. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at what it did here. And it's really not a ton of change. Text align right. Let's accept it. And it looks like it already updated. I didn't even have to refresh. Final demo. What do we want to debate on? All right, let's debate on using AI while developing software between a noob programmer like me and a 10x programmer, a senior programmer. Let's see what it says. The noob is like, hey, it's going to speed up my process. And the 10x programmer is like, well, it's going to lead to a superficial understanding of programming and principles. That's great. Download. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope that was interesting. It was fun for me. As you can see, it's a pretty fast way of developing. There are some bumps in the road. It helps to know what you're doing. It helps to be able to just go look up errors and try to understand what Composer is trying to do for you. Yeah, lean into the chat feature. It'll help you debug. I think generating a development plan is a huge value add, a huge productivity boost. So I highly recommend trying that out using GPTo1-preview to generate that development plan for you. It really does create this kind of copy and paste situation where a lot of the work becomes reading what's the development plan and then reading what the code changes are, making sure you understand it, and then QAing on your own. And if there's an error, pop into the chat, pop into Composer, try to solve that error with Cursor's help. Anyways, catch you next time. My name's Andrew. Peace.